This podcast is brought to you by Amusement Warehouse Magazine, the industry's largest trade publication. We cover amusement parks, carnivals, fairs, festivals, history, safety columns. We really got it all when it comes to the amusement business. Only remaining print publication in the amusement industry on a regular basis. So if you're interested in what the amusement industry has to offer, subscribe today. You can subscribe by logging on to amusementwarehouse.com, carnivalwarehouse.com, or amusementparkwarehouse.com. Jeremy, welcome. Thanks so much for coming on, taking some time.
Good to be with you. Always good to talk about warm weather things in the middle of winter for sure. So.
That's right. Head to Florida quick. They should have all the zone meetings in Florida, I always say.
Yeah, I'm sure it would help attendance for sure. Yeah.
I'm going up to New York for the show in a couple of weeks. I always tell Mark over there, I was like, you guys really should hold your convention in Florida. It'd be much more palatable when you do the thing. But we'll see what happens. So, 1 year under your belt at the Iowa State Fair, huh? This year, and it's been your lifelong dream to be there. I mean, tell us a little. I mean, I've read how you started out there, and you stalked basically Marion Lucas for years, and got a little job here and there, and got a ride on a golf cart, and did all those things. But tell us how you achieved your goal and clawed your way to the top there.
Yeah, well, yeah, thanks, Ron. Yeah, it's an interesting story. Like many Iowans, grew up in love with the Iowa State Fair. Grew up also the son of a county fair board president, so always been involved in fairs my whole life. But yeah, one of those school assignments, what do you want to be when you grow up, led to a letter that was sent to then Iowa State Fair CEO Marion Lucas. Began a relationship with him, a friendship that led to a job when I was 17 here at the Iowa State Fair, and spent many summers here at the Iowa State Fair through high school, college, and even I taught school right out of college. So I got to keep my summer job here, and left education, some time at the Missouri State Fair, then 12 years in Spencer at the Clay County Fair in Northwest Iowa, and then the chance to come back home here as CEO of the Iowa State Fair. So childhood dreams do come true. That's for sure. So, yeah.
Well, you summed up your whole life, so I guess we're done now. I'm just kidding. What kind of jobs were you doing when you were when you first went there? You just kind of That's what the neat thing about the fair is there, it's not like a big corporation where people have like set little duties so they can just, hey, go clean up the barn, or hey, the president or the governor of Iowa is coming over, go meet him, so you could go really high or really low depending on the day. Was it the same experience for you?
Yeah, it was. My opportunity here at the Iowa State Fair started in the special events department, which dealt a lot with our free entertainment stages, but all sorts of things involved with that. The rubber chicken throwing contest is a big thing here at the Iowa State Fair. The cow chip throwing contest, all those types of contests and events, free stages. Yeah, put out signs. I've been the fair mascot in the parade. Done a lot of different things here at the Iowa State Fair. It's kind of used and abused, for lack of better words, I guess, when you're a summer employee, high school and college. Other duties as assigned is a pretty big list for sure.
But I love that. I mean, at least I did, when I was growing up, if I had a job where I could just kind of spread my wings and do anything and learn things, I was over the moon, because I just love the challenge of a different little thing every day and doing something different. And you sound like you're kind of the same person with that.
And there was such a seasoned staff here at the Iowa State Fair at that time. Of course, Marion Lucas was the CEO here, but Jan Higgins was the assistant manager. And, Jan spent 30 years here at the Iowa State Fair. Kathy Swift in the marketing, some major names in our industry that had dedicated their careers to the Iowa State Fair. So good learning opportunities for sure for a young guy that thought he might maybe someday want to be a fair manager for sure.
What was like the most instructive job or experience you had to do when you were in that sort of jack of all trades phase?
A story that stands out to me was just the importance of being accurate. And I remember I was in charge of doing some signs for some of our entertainment and attractions here at the fair, and there were some times not right on those signs, and that was a learning opportunity. Proofread, double check, because again, when somebody's coming to the fair, they're coming to have a good time, have an enjoyable time, and you need to make sure all the details are correct so they have the best day possible, for sure.
Yeah, correct. And also you got to put yourself in their shoes. I've made many a sign or many a thing where it made complete sense to me and all my staff, but I realized the customer has no idea that I'm referring to whatever, whatever landmark you might have or whatever thing you might have. And so the poor customer has no idea what the heck I was talking about, but it made complete sense to me, and everybody around me, they knew what to do. But you got to really, I don't want to say dumb yourself down, because it has nothing to do with dumb or smart. It just has to do with, the lived experience you have, and you got to put yourself as a person who's not been there or not familiar, and they have to experience through those eyes.
I think that's a challenge. That's a challenge for us in the fair industry when you think about it. We live and breathe this. Those of us that work at fairs, year round. We know exactly where every small location is on our fairgrounds. We understand. We've spent hours agonizing and sweating over a decision to make a change, and because of that, you're right, Ron. We forget that many of our fairgoers and guests, they come here one day a year or a couple times a year.
Just go to gate one. Where's gate one? I don't know.
Exactly. We've had those same conversations here at the Iowa State Fair. We tell you where all of our gates are when you come to enter the fair, but once you get inside and want to leave, we have no signage telling you on the backside that is gate one. So just little things. But I think that's in our industry is really having to put yourself in the fairgoer shoes, because they really aren't thinking about it as much as we are, for sure.
Yeah, reading, and even like you said, signs or instructions, or sometimes it boggles my mind the interpretation that somebody will come up with. Like you put a promotion or a simple buy one get one free, and they somehow make that sound something else, like completely. I mean, so at some point you got to decide and go with what's going to be familiar with 99% of the people, because you always have to make a choice. But it's amazing. I remember when I was on the carnival side of things. They were at a fair in northern New York, right on the Canadian border. They would have a promotion, and they would take the Canadian money at par. It was when the Canadian money was worth more, I guess.
Sure.
So they would convert it to American to buy a wristband or something like that. Say Canadian par. And then I was in the office, and the guy told me one guy had come with a bag of money, and he wanted to trade it for par. And he's like, well, it doesn't say anywhere on this coupon that it says we take Canadian money to par. So it was like it was a bank exchange, and who would have thought of that? But that guy did. So it's always interesting where they get these ideas, or what they read and what you don't see. When you're
right. Yeah. Everything is open for interpretation. That's for sure. So.
So when you stopped your little sort of summer ongoing internship type thing at the fair, then that's when you became a teacher. I guess you were just getting into college and doing your thing. And
yeah, exactly. I enjoyed my summer. I always tell people I enjoyed my summer job so much I needed to find a career where I could still keep my summers for here. And so spent several years teaching high school English and coaching, which skills still used to this day. Learned.
What'd you coach?
Well, I coached boys and girls high school track, and then I spent 6 years as a head girls basketball coach. So everything you need to know about getting people to work together to achieve a common goal, dealing with parents, standing in front of high school kids every day. It's a humbling experience for sure, but lots of great skills learned that I still use for sure.
I actually coach a couple of girls' high school tennis teams still, and I guess I'm getting old because I make some reference like to the Beatles or something, and they stare at me like I fell off of Mars or something like that. I say, how can you not know the Beatles? Like, what are you talking about? I have no idea what you're talking about.
I always tell people, I've never had, standing in front of at a board meeting and presenting at a staff meeting, those types of things. No audience nearly as critical, as a sophomore English class. They are not impressed by anything, and so you have to work really hard to get your point across, for sure.
That's awesome. So I guess the teaching and the coaching really helped you, informed you in the business that you're in a little bit, and gave you some skills that you can certainly use now that you're working.
Yeah, it ultimately comes down to most of life is really about the people business, right? It's really about being able to communicate with people, communicate effectively, and being able to lead a team. And so, yeah, some of the best, I guess, business experience you could say in that way, I learned really, in a classroom setting, and definitely still pays dividends off, because ultimately that really is, you can have all the great ideas in the world, but if you can't communicate them, if you can't get people to buy into them, they're just really not going to go anywhere.
So you're teaching, and that Marion Lucas dragged you out of there too to do another job at the Missouri State Fair as a fundraiser, sort of working for the foundation. How'd that come about? You kept in touch, I guess.
Yeah, Marion and I had kept in touch. Obviously, he retired from the Iowa State Fair. And then after a little time in retirement, went back to actually work at the Missouri State Fair. And so during his tenure there, needed some assistance, and then ultimately ended up, leaving education to lead the foundation for the Missouri State Fair. Obviously, in our industry, many fairs have set up pretty successful foundations to help raise funds, whether that's for scholarships or for, in our case here in Iowa, and as was the case at Missouri as well, capital improvements. And so spent a little bit of time in that world, but learned quickly I was not a fundraiser.
It's a tough job being a fundraiser. It's a tough.
Yeah, definitely not a fundraiser at all. So
asking people for money. My first job, I worked for the Leukemia Society doing fundraising, and that's actually how I got into this. Was I ran special events instead, because I was just so tired of begging people to do something they didn't want to do. Like, oh, do you want to be a celebrity waiter? And you have to get 10 people to sit at your table and pay money. I was like, oh, who wants to do that? And then, just running an event, I ran like a after work party with beer and music. I was like, oh, the people are happy to give me money. It's like, it was great, so it was a big difference than just begging people for money. So it is a wonderful business. It's pretty neat, the impact you have on people. So from there you go to Clay County. That was a pretty good leap. I mean, you had that's a big fair, and you got managerial experience and everything else. So you must have sold them pretty well with where you came from. Pulled on all internship things you did.
Yeah, obviously, the strong background, at the Iowa State Fair as a summer employee, and that time at the Missouri State Fair. Yeah, 12 years, a fair, there's always a sense of expectation when you go to a fair that bills itself as the world's greatest county fair. But the Clay County Fair obviously picked that title up back in the 1920s, 1930s, when it really was one of the largest county fairs in the United States. But still an incredible
Did Erie County, did Jessica try to sue you for that name or not?
Yeah, right. Yeah, Jess and I used to talk about that a lot when I was at the Clay County Fair. But, such a unique event. If you've ever been there, it's a fair of about 300,000 people over a 9-day run in Spencer, Iowa. And Spencer, Iowa's population about 12,000. So
they're always really close to the top 50 list. I always get their number, but it doesn't usually quite make it, but it's right near there.
Yeah, you look at, again, that fair, again, 300,000, though, in a town of 12,000 people, it truly was such a regional draw. Still the largest farm machinery show, any fair. Companies like John Deere and Case still have a presence at the Clay County Fair, obviously right in the heart of farming country, and just a really great place to be for those 12 years.
Where do the people come from? You have 12,000. Do they just keep coming over and over again, or they?
Yeah, a lot of repeat guests. It's a big draw. Really the largest, if you're going to call it, metropolitan area to Spencer is about 90 miles away, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. But really, if you draw about 100-mile radius all around Spencer, those people just come to the fair. And so a great tradition. Again, huge livestock shows, kind of the classic fair. Of course, our carnival there, Gold Star Amusements, Mike Featherston was there with us at Clay County, and just a really neat event that I was fortunate to be part of.
And that's a great lesson to learn, because I think, sometimes with pricing and things, we're forgetting a little bit, but the need for people to come multiple times is so important, at least to me. I used to work with this little fair in Union, South Carolina. And the guy, I think the population was like 12 people or something, but it was a pretty good little fair. And Daryl Wade was the manager. He's a great guy, but he used to always tell me, Ron, we got to get everybody to come every day. And he'd price it. It was like ridiculous. It was his gate was like, half of what any normal fair would be. And the carnival wristbands were like $8 or $10 or something crazy. But sure enough, they came every day. And he had a nice little attendance. By the end of the week, it was a good little fair, so I've never forgotten that lesson. But, I just worry sometimes now with the pricing, like, are people able to come multiple times? Are they able to, just not even give it a second thought to go again? It's like almost like you got to save up a little bit in some places to get there.
Yeah, that really was our philosophy in Spencer, for sure, at the Clay County Fair. Yeah, we needed, we had to have repeat visitors, so whatever that looked like, discount deals, as you mentioned, carnival deals, whatever we could do to drive that repeat attendance, we just had to, because geographically, we were where we are, in other words there. So, there wasn't a huge metropolitan area. We were getting probably 90% of the, surrounding population attending the fair, and we needed them to attend a couple times for sure.
Reach out. Yeah. That just stayed with me. This was early when I first got in the business, and it just stayed with me. Even if I'm in a big city, if there's a fair, an event I'm running, and I'm driving outside and I see people, I was like, why aren't they at my event? Why aren't they there? It's like, I'm kind of mad, or I'm wondering what the heck I'm doing wrong. Like, why don't they all come every day? It was a good lesson to learn. It's always stayed with me, because you want to see people come, and you want to see them come over and over again.
Yeah. It's also back to, as fairs, try to fill that void and really family entertainment as well. You've got to make it affordable, so those families can attend, more than once. And you're able to do that, then that really just builds that brand loyalty as well, that, the fair becomes more than just a one-day trip. It becomes
right.
a 3 or 4 day trip, and for us, especially here in the Midwest, I think Clay County Fair, similar to us here at the Iowa State Fair, you add in that component of people camping at the fair, then that builds in that audience as well, that they're here every day.
I worked a little bit with the DuQuoin State Fair years ago, and that's a little town too. The entire town, I think, moves onto the campground when they go. It's actually the largest. I think it's the largest fairgrounds in the United States. It's like, forget how many acres it is. It's like some ungodly amount of acres. There's like the guy who used to own the Pepsi place has a house in the middle of it. But the entire town would just move onto the fairgrounds. It was, at least at the time, it was like a free gate. And it just amazed me what a sense of community it was. It was just the fair time, and you just moved to the fairgrounds basically during the fair.
Yeah, we saw that a lot in Spencer too, mainly because we needed so many. Of course, as the fair, we needed employees, to run admission gates and make the fair happen. But the Clay County Fair still has a really strong presence of local nonprofit groups operating food concessions, bingo concessions, and they needed volunteers. So life kind of shut down in Spencer the 9 days of the Clay County Fair, because everybody, to your point, was either camping at the fair or they were working or volunteering in some capacity at the fair. But it really took the whole community working together to make that fair happen, and still, it takes everybody to make it happen.
I love how focused you've been on I say this with all seriousness, focused on the Iowa State Fair. What really cracked me up was, when you interviewed for the job at Clay County, you said, I'm not going to leave except if they offer me the job at the Iowa State Fair.
True. Yeah. True story. again, was fortunate to understand the Clay County Fair is a tremendous, as you mentioned, kind of just right below the top 50. And, small town Iowa, I grew up here in Iowa. And so it was such a great place my wife and I to raise, well, two of our three sons were born in Spencer. And, it's just such a wonderful fair. But yeah, from the very beginning, there was probably only one place that was going to take me away, and that was the opportunity to come here to Des Moines to the Iowa State Fair.
But you're saying this at the job interview. You're hoping to get the job. You had decent experience, but I mean, you weren't like a big fair manager at some other place. So
No.
I guess it was a little bit dicey. Am I going to get the job or not? And they ask you the question. You said, well, by the way, if I get the job at the Iowa State Fair, I have to leave and go there. That's a gutsy thing.
I think where that came from, of course, to give the Clay County Fair credit, a very traditional county fair with a board, like most fair boards, that skewed a little older. And so obviously here they were interviewing this guy in his early 30s about this opportunity to come to Spencer. And I think the concern was, are you just using this as a stepping, are you just you're going to be a one and done, or, just going to be here a couple years and move on? And really, I wanted them to understand. I fully understood from the beginning how special the Clay County Fair was, but there was one place that probably had my heart a little more, for sure. So
I laughed for a while when I said that. I was like, well, I love you, but there's somebody I love a little more. So if she pays attention to me, I'm going there.
Right.
That's really awesome. So I guess eventually the opportunity presented itself to make your case. Did you have to interview and everything, or they just say, this guy's obsessed, we got to hire him?
Oh yeah, no, it was definitely a robust, nationwide search, that the Iowa State Fair went through, obviously looking to fill the shoes of a legend in our industry. Gary Slater had been here for more than 20 years. And so, it was definitely a robust search, lots of interviews and all those types of things. But in the end, to be able to get the position here. So.
That's great. And along the way, you became is it the chairman? They always rotate these titles of the IFE.
Yeah.
Yeah. Marla's like president and CEO. So that must be the chairman or something.
Yeah. I was chairman of the board in 22, which was actually my last year in Spencer. So I was chairman while I was at the Clay County Fair. That term ended in November, of course, this time of year in 2022. And then I started at the Iowa State Fair in 2023. So
at Clay County, when you went there, what did what were your focuses? What did you think needed to be improved? What needed to be changed? What was your agenda for what you're going to do? And were you keeping notes on the Iowa State Fair the whole time, just in case they called?
Yeah, no, I was pretty focused in Spencer, but obviously a close connection, even the whole time I was in Spencer with the Iowa State Fair and with Gary, obviously, as the two largest fairs in the state. But I really think the thing I probably developed a deep sense of in Spencer was really the need for the guest experience. And I brought that with me to Des Moines. And really the guest experience, really, when it comes right down to it, no matter what you do at your fair, no matter how much you spend on entertainment, no matter how big your carnival is, no matter how many commercial vendors you have, no matter how many foods on a stick you have, the fair goer wants easy access to the parking lots. They want a clean fairgrounds, and they want clean bathrooms. And they want a place to sit down. If you can do those four things, I'm convinced people are going to love your fair. And so
you don't need that entertainment at that point.
Yeah, because it takes care of itself. It improves the length of stay. And so, we invested a lot of money in Spencer on benches and picnic tables for people to sit down, remodeled restrooms, back to signage we talked about at the beginning. I think sometimes at our fairs, we assume that the same people come every year, and we don't think about those first-time fairgoers. And so just how do we make that experience better for them? And really, that really is what I focused on the whole time in Spencer. And we saw huge growth in terms of length of stay, fairgoer spending, and all those types of things. And we're honestly trying to replicate some of the things here. The most important purchase we made last year in a $3 million capital budget here at the Iowa State Fair was 50 more picnic tables. that we're just scattering out, and we're going to do the same thing this next year. Those are the things I think that really drive the fairgoer experience, just kind of those creature comforts.
Yeah, absolutely. Being able to, as people get older too, they want a place to sit down and hang out for a few minutes, and not, it definitely adds hours to their stay, and it's a big improvement. People don't realize it, but or some people don't realize. A lot of people do, but it's big. It's really big.
I think in our industry, you've got kind of two camps, maybe, I don't know, two schools of thought. You've got some places that are just trying to wedge, maximize every square inch of real estate and wedge everything in that they can. And then I like green space. It's okay to have some space between concession stands. It's okay to have take a booth space in a building and turn it into a seating area. It's okay. I think through COVID, especially, people like that sense to be able to spread out a little bit. We're blessed here in the Midwest. Many of us in the Midwest are blessed with these huge fairgrounds with trees and grass, and that really are parks. And we need to utilize them a little more as parks. And again, you improve the guest experience, are going to stay longer. The money in the end will take care of itself for sure.
Absolutely. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned COVID and when we came back from it, or the first year, did you guys ran in 2021?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. So I was telling a lot of people, I run a fair up in New York, a county fair up there. And we were talking about it. I said, we're going to have people that have never been to the fair before or haven't been for years. So we got to really do everything we can to have a great experience, because we got like a once in a lifetime opportunity to grab people that, maybe became jaded over the years, or maybe had a bad experience or whatever else, to grab them and come back. And I think a lot of fairs, people were experiencing it for the first time in a long time. And hopefully a lot of them did great things to keep them.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think as COVID, we came back from COVID, a viable option because we're outdoors. I think that was really important for a while. And then I think when you look across the industry, and, your numbers probably show doing the top 50 list, but, a lot of fairs are definitely back to those pre-pandemic levels, if not ahead of them. And I think you're right. I think, Ron, we were able to capture those first timers and turn them into fairgoers. And I think you're seeing that across the industry. Obviously, as always, when weather cooperates, when you're blessed with good weather, but you're just seeing a lot of those fairs back to those pre-pandemic levels for sure,
or higher in some cases. Yeah, they're
right. Yeah, we've seen that here at the Iowa State Fair for sure. We were on a nice little kind of upward trajectory leading into COVID, and then of course no fair in 20, and then kind of rebuilding, but definitely exceeding those here anyway at the Iowa State Fair, exceeding those pre-pandemic levels.
That's great. I was actually reading a history book for an interview I did a month or two ago, and it was about Conklin shows, but it was when I was reading about the industry, like during the war, let's say, I was looking at the parallels between then and COVID, like supply chain issues, and people couldn't do, whatever, and fairs didn't run. Minnesota didn't run. I'm sure you didn't run.
Right.
But when they came back, the numbers went up and they stayed up, because I was like thinking, okay, we had a huge year in 2021. Is this going to stop? I was wondering when it was going to stop, but that gave me a lot of, because usually things repeat themselves. They're cyclical. So I was like, well, that's interesting, because that's a dynamic or game-changing thing. It brings new people, and hopefully they'll stay for a long time and stay forever or whatever.
Yeah, you're right. Almost like leveled up to a new plateau in some ways.
That's gonna keep, and not like waiting for the shoe to drop. Although right. I do worry a little bit about pricing. We are, I don't know. Might be a worry wart, but it just seems like things are so expensive. Even the food, you go. I mean, it's more to buy a gyro than it is to get into a fair sometimes. It's like, is that really, how long can we sustain that? Or wristband prices or whatever it might be, they're getting up there, but maybe that's changed too. And maybe people just have more money or more disposable. I don't know, but it doesn't make me nervous a little bit.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Ron. I think those conversations, we've had a lot internally here at the Iowa State Fair. Will there be a tipping point, for a lot of different things? I know our job, I feel like here at the Iowa State Fair this next year, especially, we're holding the line on all costs. We're not raising admission, not raising anything, just to kind of hold the line a little bit and see, where exactly all this is going to settle out. Back to that, we seem to have leveled up to a new plateau, but is that really going to be sustainable? And I think that's a question, all of us in the industry are probably asking for sure.
And you see it a little bit with the promotions. If you run a promotion and all of a sudden you get this huge response to a dollar day or whatever, BOGO night, you say, the price elasticity is really sensitive. They're really responding to a promotion. So I wonder, and then are we getting where, I was in the middle of summer, but I'm talking about the industry in general. Are we getting to where, they can only afford to come on a Friday or a Saturday because it's worth it, as opposed to the weekdays and things like that. But those are existential questions for the industry, I guess.
I always tell people, our industry though has faced those types of questions though for a long. I mean, we're still around. I tell people all the time. People always ask, "Is the Iowa State Fair still relevant?" And I always talk about the fact that we balance, kind of tradition with the new things. But I always say we have to give ourselves a little bit of grace. We've been in existence for 171 years. And you look at, many fairs, been in existence on the East Coast almost 200 years. Well, you don't stay around for 200 years without kind of understanding your customer a little bit. And so I think we sometimes have to give ourselves a little bit of grace, because there's a lot of businesses, a lot of industries that have not survived 200 years. And yet fairs in some ways are maybe more relevant and at some places stronger than ever before.
I agree with you. I'm not a naysayer when it comes to that stuff. When you went to Clay County, and I know you had, some experience doing the little, but what were the biggest challenges? What areas of the fair did you have to really have the biggest learning curve on?
I think really for me, I had a little bit of experience in the entertainment world, when I was through the summer job. So a little touch of that, but, really for us at Clay County, similar to the Iowa State Fair, the bigger grandstand concerts are a big part. So, how does that work in today's world? Obviously, as those prices continue to go up. And then, the Clay County Fair, such a strong agricultural fair too. So, even though I grew up in small town Iowa, definitely lots of learning on the livestock end of things with our livestock competitions and those types of things. So always something to learn. I've been fortunate to be surrounded by a lot of people smarter than me who I consider mentors, Jerry Hammer, Marlene Pearson-Jolliffe, even some colleagues of similar age, Jess Underberg being one of those as well, that always willing and able to pass on knowledge for sure.
Jerry Hammer. Yeah. When you went to the Iowa State Fair, you were there. What I read, and it's probably a really prudent thing to do this year, you kind of were just sort of watchful, and it's a well-oiled machine, so it pretty much was doing what it was going to do, and you just were watching, taking notes, figuring out what your agenda is going to be for the future. Was that the approach you took?
Yeah, 100%. Again, as I mentioned, Iowa State Fair has been around for 170 years, so it's just fine. It's operating just fine. So
I could screw it up really good, and it'll still be there.
Yeah, exactly. So my job was to not screw it up, but was to really just sit back, watch, observe, and obviously, as with any organization, always a chance to do things better and make improvements, and that's the road we're going to head down. But really, at first, just to watch, the staff operate, really see how some things really were done here. From all perspectives, really learn, watch, learn, and observe. And then we've always got time in the future to make those changes.
Absolutely. So what are some of the items on your agenda for change?
Yeah, well, I really think for us, I talked about earlier, that creature comfort piece. Again, we need more places for people to sit here at the Iowa State Fair. We need to improve our wayfinding signage to help people get around the grounds. So creature comforts are going to be important. I think the other thing for us, especially here at Iowa, is really protecting our agricultural core, whether that's through livestock competitions, or through just ag education in general. Even in Iowa, we have to educate people where their food comes from, and we want to make sure we use our platform to do that to the best of our ability. I think those are probably the two biggest things. Expanding the guest services, the creature comforts, and then protecting that ag core for sure.
Yeah, when you're talking about agriculture, that's a thing that's kind of been on my mind for years. I don't have a big agricultural background. I grew up in New Jersey, so I didn't even know if we had a state fair. When I was there, at least we something in name only. I think the Hammonds ran it actually. But I talked to Marla about it not too long ago, and surprisingly, she agreed with me on something that she usually tells me I'm wrong. But when I go, and I've gone to a billion of those livestock competitions over the years, I have no idea what's going on, and they don't explain it to you. And I want to learn, I want to understand, but I feel like I'm a Martian that dropped down. I'm watching a basketball game. I don't know if they're looking for a fuzzy tail or for whatever they happen to be looking for, but I think that's a way, and you guys may do it. I'm sure there's some fairs that do it, but having that knowledge for those people that just happen to be sitting there, I think would be an awesome, improvement for some fairs, because by and large, you don't learn much at all about it. And I would love to learn. I'd love to know what they're looking for. But, I was watching the dog show, the American Kennel Club on the after Thanksgiving parade. And they were explaining, because I was thinking how similar that might be, but they were explaining, oh, they're looking for this or looking for that. But, some of that in the agricultural competitions, I think would be awesome to just learn about some stuff that I'm curious to learn about.
Yeah, you're right on the right track. We talk about that a lot, that some of the purely agricultural components of our fair, that really the fair was based on, these livestock competitions, we're not using them to their full, I guess, to the lack of better words, or full ability to also teach people about agriculture. And we have to bridge that gap. And really those livestock shows, it really one area of, I think, fairs in general that we have not yet really fully exploited for the educational piece of that as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you've got animals in the ring, you've got bleachers. I mean, right? It's a show, but we do very little to tell you what it is exactly.
What the rules of the game are.
Right. Yeah. You don't know what show you're watching. That's for sure. Yeah.
Or what they're looking for. I mean, I think this dog looks fine, or this pig looks fine, but it loses. I was like, why did my pig lose? I like that pig. It was a good pig. But, and maybe from a marketing head, I wonder if you can't make like little mini celebrities out of some of the animals, as they compete over the days, and would people go back and see him, the Stinky the pig or whatever, and he's winning, and he was, he did great, and he did great against this guy. I don't know. Maybe it would be something, but maybe I'm crazy too, but.
No, I think it's all things for us to think about, as we continue back to that relevant piece, right? Fairs, taking that, how do we take this traditional part of a fair, a livestock show, and keep it relevant for today's audience that is not understanding what's going on. And that's, there are a lot of smart people in our industry, and I'm sure there are some fairs that are already, light years ahead of others in that very thing.
Well, it's tough too, because it's like its own world. I live in Virginia now, and there was a fair I can think of that had a strong 4-H thing. And I happened to wander into one of the barns, and I felt like I had just crossed over into North Korea or something like that. Yeah. Like staring at, like, what are you doing here? And I was like, I thought it was like the fair, and I could come in and do stuff. But, they do have their own little world sometimes. They're very insular. And it's, I'm not saying everyone, but sometimes, you get into that a lot, or you see that, fairly often. And I know they want to protect their animals, and I know they want to do all those things. But, opening that up, because you do have a wonderful opportunity for people to see things and be around things for the first time. So it's a pretty cool thing, and I'd like to see some more of it,
Yeah, you do. You look at that, lots of livestock competitions occur, but when those livestock competitions occur at the fair, you do have people that are kind of like you were just talking about, bursting or breaking into that bubble a little bit. And so how do we engage those exhibitors as well to teach our fair goers about agriculture? That's something we talked a lot about at the Clay County Fair, and we're still talking about here as well, that, they are part of the fair experience. They're there competing at the fair, but yet they're also there showcasing for all those people that are not involved in agriculture. So yeah, it's, as always, people come to fairs. I always say a family can come to a fair, 4 different ages, and their fair experience is vastly different. what they want. And that's what makes fair so special. They're doing it together, but yet they're finding something to entertain themselves and educate themselves separately as well.
Yeah, it's really, I think it's an area that just could explode. It could really be a game changer for a lot of people that if they're, and I don't know what the answer is. A lot of smart people out there that are more involved with things than I am, but I know there's some kernel of an idea there that could really be a cool thing to make it, open to everyone and really interesting to everyone too. Not just open, not just like learn. There used to be a guy that had a show, and he have like a Wild West show, and he was like really into animals and stuff. And he'd come out with a new show every couple of years, and I was buying some entertainment, and Mike would go, it's an educational show. I said, Mike, when you say educational, I hear boring.
Right.
So, make something, make it exciting so the people are coming here, but who knows? Speaking of entertainment, with how are you doing with grandstand stuff? That's a tough gig right now for most places anyway. Some places get lucky, but
yeah, we're in a pretty good spot here at the Iowa State Fair. We're fortunate. One of the final projects that Gary Slater completed during his tenure here was really a renovation of the Iowa State Fair grandstand, increasing the capacity to more than 15,000, and really making it more of a true concert venue. And so that's helped us. Jelly Roll, Eric Church, the Chicks, all have played here at the Iowa State Fair in the last couple years. So that really has allowed us to kind of maintain, a niche. Again, but we face the same thing everybody else is facing as well: increased competition. Whether it's from arenas or festivals or casinos, and just the increasing price. And we're a traditional Midwest fair in the sense that every night is a concert, ending in fireworks here, and it's a separate paid ticket from your fair admission. And so we're still able to do that model here, but definitely becoming a challenge as we continue to move forward.
So you're a hard ticket on most shows in the grandstand. Okay.
Yeah, all shows. Yep, every night here is a hard ticketed show. And again, we have some success here at the Iowa State Fair. Year, we might sell 100,000, grandstand hard tickets during the run of the fair. But again, when you step back and look at the big picture, that's about 10% of our fairgoers, actually attend a concert. So it's just always that balance for us. Obviously, it's larger than 10% of the budget, but it also checks a lot of other boxes in terms of expectation. And really, I think the grandstand concert is a way to hook that fairgoer who I would not call a every year fairgoer.
Yeah,
you got your people that
person that's got to be there every year. Yeah.
Right. That the concert's going to hook somebody that maybe comes every 2 or 3 years. And it really is the concert that gets them in the gate.
Yeah. Somebody I was interviewing told me, they were like, yeah, who's in the grandstand gets a lot of chatter, gets a lot of talk about how good, even sort of tempers people's ideas of whether the fair is going to be good or not, just based upon who's, oh yeah, they're good this year, they have Jelly Roll, or oh, it's no good, or there's nobody I don't like,
That is not the world as much I live in here, but 110% the world I lived in at the Clay County Fair in Spencer.
Oh, really?
Back to that, a community of 6,000 or 7,000, or 10,000 people welcoming 300,000 people in. That grandstand lineup was, like, to your point, was a source of civic pride. That's the measurement of how good the fair is. And you tell people, are you going to the concert? Well, no, but I just want to, that just gives me the benchmark. And so
hear it. I was there when he played or something like that.
Right, exactly. And so, and in Spencer, it all goes back to the mid 90s when they had, they were fortunate enough to book, Tim McGraw and Garth Brooks before they became big. And then they became big. So, that you go back to that, and so that's a real challenge, though. I think for fairs in that niche, that's a hamster wheel you're caught on, where that grandstand entertainment is more about marketing and public perception of your event than it is about the concert itself.
Profit and loss too, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but how do you re-educate your audience? And if you want to get out of that the fair is still the same great fair, maybe just without the concert. It's a challenge it's a challenge for a lot of fairs in our industry.
It's funny you say that, because the fair I run in Orange County, New York, Orange County, it's a racetrack, but back in the late 80s, early 90s, I mean, we literally had like Metallica, Van Halen, huge names. And people to this day email, why don't you use Stink? We don't have Van Halen. I mean, it's like, they have no clue what these acts cost. And nowadays, anyway, I mean, just have no perception whatsoever. They're like, why don't you just book them? I was like, okay, let me, $4 or $5 million and I'll book them. No problem.
Right.
They figured in my fair budget, I mean, one act.
Yeah.
It's incredible, but they do hold on to that perception of what should be there, and they want it. It's like, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable what goes on.
Yeah.
Post COVID too, a lot of the grounds acts have changed quite a bit too.
Mm-hmm.
I've been talking about that a little bit too. It's like a lot of people stop touring and doing things, and especially animal acts have gone away quite a bit. And it's definitely been a little bit of a thinning out. There's a lot of the same, acts that you see, and it's not quite as diverse as it used to be. Are you experiencing that?
Yeah, I think especially, between COVID, I think COVID, obviously a lot of people had to leave the business, because they could not work. I think it also sped up some people's retirement plans. And then I think, especially, you mentioned those animal acts that were kind of more of the educational nature. I think the animal rights activists have finally got to a lot of them. But yeah, there definitely is a thinner pool, a shallower pool to choose from when you're looking at those acts. And hopefully, I would say that's probably just my opinion. Probably one part of our business that is not back to that pre-COVID level is that level of associate, a member in our fair trade associations that's providing those free entertainment pieces. Just not quite there yet, for sure.
Yeah, it's still, and there's so many. I was told the story a couple of times. If I'm repeating myself, I'm sorry, but I was like at a restaurant and I was watching. There was I was like at the bar, and there was some kind of TV show on, and they were showing like videos of people that do stuff. And they were like, I saw like 5 or 6 acts that would be fantastic. So I don't know if anybody in the industry is looking, if the agents are looking, but I think there's things out there, but that you got to develop an act and you got to do all those things. But I think there are opportunities. It's just, I don't know. It just seems like it's a lot of the same when you go, even last, we're taping this just after the IFE convention, and there's a lot of the same. There's a lot of the same.
Right. Well, and I think you're right. It's I think those acts are still there. They're just going other venues, TV shows like America's Got Talent, that type of thing. And we even talk about this, switching from entertainment to competition at fairs. Through COVID, people really kind of went back to their roots, for lack of better words. They were gardening more, they were baking more, they were quilting more, all those types of things. And yet, I don't know if we ever successfully got people to understand that, well, you can enter and show those things.
Well, that's interesting.
And so I was a part of a conversation actually at the IFE convention about that. I look through my social media and it seems like everybody I know now bakes their own sourdough bread. Well, are we?
My daughter does.
Are we?
Just
have we made the connection with some of these younger people that are doing all these things that you can enter at the fair? You can show that at the fair and get a chance for a ribbon and all those types of things. So, yeah, I mean, whether it's entertainment or those types of things, I think it's just making sure we're letting people know that, fairs are viable outlets for that entertainment piece or that craft you enjoy doing, for sure.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. I think there is a great opportunity for that. If you can, especially if people have never been in a competition before, I wonder if they have some self-doubt. Like, how do I know if my bread's any good? I bring it. Are they going to laugh at me when I carry my stupid loaf over there? They're like, get out of here. This is no good. Because they probably have no reference point to be in a competition for bread. So how do they know if their bread's good enough? But, just to be open to them, that could be a great thing. That could be great thing.
Yeah. I think definitely, again, always opportunities, for growth, for sure.
Yeah. It's unlimited. I was laughing too when I was reading, excuse me, you were talking about off-season rentals and getting money. And you're saying, what other industry, only operates two weeks a year? Although I did think of one. NASCAR, I think, is the other one. They have 2 races a year,
right?
Those giant facilities that they have, and then they have to rent them the other time. But that, you're right. It's like one of the only ones to do it. And I was teasing, I think it was Jessica or somebody. I was like, how often do you get the question, what do you do the other 50 weeks of the year? You know, for what, because people have no idea that, you know, it's a year round job. It's a big thing, but keeping it rented, like you're saying, with the off-season rentals is so important to have a healthy fair and have a healthy fairgrounds.
Well, you just can't keep all your eggs in one basket. Yeah. And to that point, yeah, I've said many times, you know, go to a bank, tell them you want to open a business. You're going to be open 11 days a year, and you're going to do it outside. And, you know, so completely depend on the weather and see how much, you know, see how big the loan the bank will give you, you know, and so that, and, you know, that's really what we do in the fair business. And so, anytime we can do, and we've been fortunate here, you know, the Blue Ribbon Foundation here at the Iowa State Fair has invested, you know, millions into the fairgrounds here. And so we've been able to turn some of our buildings into facilities that can be used on cold winter days like today.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, and there are some fairs that are leaps and bounds ahead of us, you know, in terms of the ratio of their revenue between the actual fair event and what they're doing in the non-fair. But yeah, any revenue you can generate outside the fair really just protects you, you know, from having a rainy fair, for example, or as we learned from COVID, not having one at all.
The diversification is important.
Yeah, so that diversification and spreading that revenue stream out throughout the year for cash flow purposes, but then also just to insulate yourself is really, really important.
Yeah. I had a bad year one year. My accountant, who, you know, wasn't that familiar with the industry that much, came in and he's like, what happened? I was like, well, I'm in a business that somebody else has the key to the door. They could just lock it and nobody can come in. There's nothing I could do. You know, it's like, it's all
right.
over with the thing. So it is dicey. It's a dicey business in some ways. Although, you know, if you really step back and look at the numbers, you don't almost ever see anybody down 50%. It you know,
right.
over it's 10%, 20%. You have a bad year, or you're up, or you're close. You know that I know, and I know it's a fear, and I know there's one time it could possibly happen in a long period of time, over a long period of time. But generally, this is the variable is only this much, because you really don't see fairs like, oh, I was off 75% this year. It just doesn't happen. You know,
Yeah, I think for us, you know, and I think some fairs, I know here in Iowa, we've mitigated that. You know, one way you mitigate that is we've invested in air conditioning in buildings. You know, that takes the really hot somewhat out of the equation. And then, you know, just as you make improvements, hard surfacing, you know, building improvements and stuff, that takes the rain a little bit out of the equation as well. Now, I understand that obviously that still affects out the true outdoor pieces, like the carnivals, you know, and the rides and stuff. But, you know, yeah, I think a lot of us have tried to put some things in place to still be an attractive destination, kind of regardless of what the weather is doing.
What the weather is. The carnival you just mentioned, you have an independent midway, a relatively new one, actually, with what you're doing. How is that getting up to speed on all that? Because that wasn't there when you were there the first time, and it was there the second time, and it's quite the undertaking to do.
It is. You know, you mentioned earlier about, you know, what did I need to learn? Well, that's been the quickest kind of up to speed here at the Iowa State Fair, is just our independent midway operation with the thrill parks. And you know, it is a challenge for sure, but it's a niche that we are kind of filling here in the upper Midwest with some neighboring fairs as well. And so you know, it's just a challenge. I think more than anything gives me a little more insight when I'm talking to my friends from OABA about some of the challenges they go through, because we get it, you know, we understand it as well. And so, you know, again, just such a challenging time in our industry, from the fair side for our carnival partners, you know, and I know OABA has been doing a lot of things, but you know, just from labor to just the shrinking number of carnivals, it is a, you know, it's something that we on the fair side need to make sure we're doing all we can to make sure we're building that partnership up with our carnival providers, whether that's a single provider or you know, multiple providers, in our case with an independent, but just making sure we're strong partners, because it is tough. It's a tough road right now in that industry for sure.
Yeah. A couple good years of help, definitely for sure. With the last post-pandemic's been pretty good for the carnival industry in general. So when you went to interview at the Iowa State Fair, was there any caveat? Well, I'm going to leave if I get this job, or no?
Well, I'm fortunate. The Iowa State Fair is 171 years old, and I am the 13th person to
That's
serve
it, huh?
as secretary of the Iowa State Fair Board, as my official title is. So
Did one of
I
them
guess
live like a really long time or something?
what
Like
that means is
97 and still running it?
what that means is I think if I don't screw it up, I get to stay a long time. And so this is a great place to be. Unique situation. Of course, my wife and I are three sons. You might be familiar. The Iowa State Fair is one of the few fairs left. We live here on the property.
That's pretty cool.
We have a house here on the fairgrounds. And so it's a great place to raise my family for sure.
And I was talking to one of your board members. He says they lock the gate at night so you can't leave to go to another job. Is that true?
Yeah, I don't know about that for sure, but but no, it's a great place to be for sure.
So the reason I was asking that is in the news lately, apparently there might be some giant American fair going on at your fairgrounds that I would imagine you'd run. I don't know who else would run it. So maybe you would have another job. Is there, what can you tell us anything about that? What might be happening or not happening?
I really can't tell you anything about that because still to this date, there really have been no official conversations between President-elect Trump and his team and the Iowa State Fair. Obviously, you're referring to the Great American State Fair that President-elect Trump mentioned in a video clip, kind of his idea to celebrate America's 250th birthday in 2026. At this point, we're just, full speed ahead planning for the 2025 Iowa State Fair. And we know the 2026 Iowa State Fair, as most fairs will include, some nod to our country's 250th birthday, but no official conversations yet at this time regarding that event.
Well, but what you'd be running would essentially be a World's Fair, which we've had in other places. With different take on it. But essentially it would be because it would celebrate everything great from every state. And that'd be a heck of a thing to run, Jeremy. I mean, that would really be, talk about, you thought the Iowa State Fair was going to be the cap of your career. That would be like even beyond that. I mean, I'm not even kidding. That's a serious, and the opportunities it brings would just be, because they'd really want the best of everything. It would be pretty unbelievable.
You look at the concept as was outlined by President-elect Trump. Yeah, kind of this pavilions from every state and all sorts of things. The event side of me thinks, wow, that what a really cool. That's an event I would want to go attend. Kind of a World's Fair of our country. But then the other, the practical hat comes on and says that's a really big event to plan and not a lot of time. So again, I guess we're just kind of waiting and seeing, for lack of better words, but nothing official at this time.
Yeah, kind of like the Big E. They do 5 states and they have
Right.
the buildings for each one, but you make areas for each state, and what do you bring for each one? Is it the whatever they've contributed to America over the years, or special inventions they've made, or do you move a Tesla factory onto the grounds, or what? There's just so many possibilities of what you could do. And I don't know if it was necessarily, I didn't hear a whole lot about agricultural, but I was thinking more like industrial, things people, maybe it is agricultural, maybe that a state, that's their biggest contribution, but it would really be an incredible thing to learn about each state and what they do, and how the heck do you drag people from Hawaii there, and all those things. It would really be pretty amazing, to have that, and would take creative mind, because you really want the best of everything to be there for an event like that, I would think. So it could be a heck of a thing.
Yeah, it's fun to think about. That's for sure. Fun to dream about. Yeah, how would each state be represented? But you're right. A lot of logistics. Yeah, one of which being, how do you get Hawaii? Yeah, here for sure. So.
And then you'd have a whole new board. That'd be tough.
Yeah,
two boards.
It would be interesting. Yeah, for sure. It'd be interesting.
That's good. But I think they said it was going to be year long if they were going to have it, right? Like a whole year.
I believe his statement, referred to. You're 100% right. A World's Fair type model of several months, a year, that type of concept for sure.
I'm just thinking now, is this your plan to be the #1 fair in the country on the list? I just caught that. I said, "This is Jeremy's behind this. He wants to be
Yeah.
number one."
Right. Yeah.
Texas
Yeah.
and Houston, the Iowa
Yeah.
State Fair plus be number one in the industry. That would
It'd be a once in a lifetime thing for sure. Yeah.
that'd be pretty cool. It'd really be pretty cool. Well, we're coming about to the end of our hour, believe it or not, and I feel like we barely scratched the surface, asking all these crazy questions. So what's ahead? What's your next steps at the Iowa State Fair right now? Do you have some things you're heading for right away?
Yeah.
I didn't even ask you about the IFE and the new. You were the
Yeah.
chairman of the search committee, weren't you? Oh my gosh, you got to get
Right.
back on for part 2.
Yeah, it's been a busy year. Obviously, finishing up my duties as a past chair of the IFE, leading the search committee to bring David Grindle to the IFE, and then a lot of projects here at the Iowa State Fair. We're in the middle of a multi-year renovation effort of our livestock barns, kind of a reminder of our cornerstone. All those buildings more than 100 years old. So it's been a busy year, that's for sure. It's been a busy year with a lot of different things going on, both here with the Iowa State Fair and the IFE.
That's great. I'm looking forward to hoping to interview David Grindle soon with his bow tie. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, he just definitely brings an outside perspective, to our industry. Lots of experience in the trade association world, which really is what the IFE is. And so just really, we were blessed. So many great candidates, for the position, and David's expertise in government relations and advocacy, which I know is important again to our carnival partners. His expertise in that area, plus just that trade show or trade association experience, which of course includes trade shows, really made him the right candidate for the right time for the IFE.
I was just surprised you didn't hire the next person from the Ozark Empire Fair. No.
Well, I say you know your fair history. You know the industry history, the tradition there of the IFE in Springfield, and so
Strong.
Marla's just raised the educational value of our association so much, and with the strong staff she had, it was a perfect opportunity to bring somebody in with some outside views, and again, much like a first-time fairgoer, look at everything with a set of fresh eyes for sure.
Hopefully it'll be great because you get none of the praise and all of the the beating up.
Right.
So, thank you so much for coming on. Yeah. It's been really, really interesting, and hopefully we'll have you back next year to see what's going on with the Iowa State Fair and your great World's Fair, whatever you're going to be running over there. Should be interesting. Thanks so much for all you do for the industry, and it was a pleasure.
Hey, thank you. Good to be with you. And this is one I won't have to watch again. I've already seen it, so I watch all your others, so I can take a break on this one.
You want to watch your own. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, John.
This podcast is brought to you by Innovative Ticketing is the ticketing source made for the amusement industry. Our staff of professionals can guide you through your setup, assist with customer service, even on the weekends when you most need it, and help increase your sales through promotions that work. Innovative Ticketing is the ticketing source made for the amusement industry. Sign up today at innovativeticketing.com.